Hello, hello, hello. Let's get the thing on the screen. Booyah. Hey, what's up? It's been a couple days. We're gonna tilt this down just a little bit. Bring ourselves a little bit more in frame. Booyah. Hey, how's it going? It is October 30th, and we're getting real close to Election Day. And I missed a day of polls. There was some yesterday. We can go over a bunch of those. Let me filter this down one more step, and let's do it because there was a whole bunch of cool stuff yesterday. You gotta click the button. Found it. Okay, look, polls. They are up in this direction. So let's go through any of these that are kind of important. Big news out of Monmouth and Marist College. Again, Biden between 4 and 6. This is a very big deal. This should worry Trump supporters mostly. This is a little rough. Hi, Frank Garland. How are you? It was lovely seeing you the other day. Oh, and Braxton Boone. Hello. How are you? I don't think I've seen you around recently, but, you're welcome. Come on in. Come hang out. So, actually, this isn't what I want. What I'm going to pull up here is the interactive. So the reason that Florida is so important and Biden being up by a couple points is, if you look, Biden's got a good chance of winning now, but if he wins Florida, it gets real bad. It gets real bad for Trump. This is basically an unwinnable race at that point. If Florida goes to Trump, it's fine. He's still got a 30% chance. Obviously, a big pickup for him. Hey, Mark, how's it going? So that can be a thing. Florida's an important state, but for Biden, it is quite literally win Florida, win the race. Save the cheerleader, save the world. And a little bit of a Heroes reference there, unintentionally. I never watched the show, but their marketing around that point must have been pretty good because I still remember it. So that's why these Florida polls are pretty important. 4, 5, 6 points is a little bit outside of the margin of error that usually projects a close race. But again, polling error is not correlated year to year. So in the same way that this could be a Biden +1, it could also be a Biden +10. So you have to read these both ways. I think we're preconditioned to read things because of 2016 with okay, but the polls will probably go against Biden. Not necessarily. Really, no one knows. It's truly uncorrelated from year to year. Maine, big lead there, not surprising. In North Carolina, a small lead. We'll get into, I'm sure you saw the clickbaity title today of WTF North Carolina. Iowa continues to be a very close race, Trump +1. Again, this does not really, I would still say it's slightly Biden favored. Joe Lyons, how important is Iowa as a swing state? Basically not at all. We really don't matter. If Iowa goes for Biden, it will be the icing on a landslide victory with him running away with 350 to 400 electoral votes. If we go to Trump, it doesn't really help. He needs Iowa to kind of win. To illustrate that, this little interactive is great here. So Biden, it's about 50-50. So if it goes red, Trump's chances improve a little bit. If it goes blue, you can see this is real big. So what this does is it actually looks at the demographics of states. So it actually will change several other ones. So right now, North Carolina is 2/3 Biden. Same with Florida, right? If Iowa goes blue, it's saying, okay, knowing that, it's actually 86% for North Carolina, 87% for Florida. So that's pretty nuts. So that poll is pretty, Trump +1, we've seen a lot more Biden plus a couple. It's going to be a really tight race, and they're not going to know on election night, more than likely. Listen, Iowa just came off the caucus. I don't think that we're, in any position to yell at anybody about counting votes. So I think we just need to be cool and ride that train for a little bit. The other one's not a big deal. Checking in on the Senate stuff. Gideon, this is a really close race. Cunningham +3. Keep this in mind for when we go to today's updates. And then the North Carolina governor polls, very strong for Cooper there. Another Cunningham +4. This is not really considered to be a competitive race. Ernst +2. Again, this race is neck and neck. It's probably one of the most competitive in the country. Iowa is probably the closest to 50-50 race in the country, but that doesn't make you important, just because of how many other states are favored towards Biden at this point. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. So to get to the point of the top line of the video, look at these polls for Cunningham. Remember, it was Cunningham +3 from an A+ rated poll, and remember how Cooper was like +11. All of a sudden, Marist College came out with this batch today, and these are all stunningly good numbers for really Democrats. I mean, you look at the governor's race, obviously that doesn't impact the presidential race or the Senate, but down ballot voting is very, very key. So if you have a very strong governor, it's just more likely that people tend to vote blue for the rest of the ticket. So that's a pretty huge deal. And then general election things are pretty up there. If we take off, I don't want to deal with, they have like this new online poll, or Sway something. Let me, come on, filter. You know what? Fine. I will just reload you. There we go. This new group, Swayable. Yeah, I don't really like their poll. This is like an online clicker poll, so their results can be all over the place. Like Ohio +12 for Trump is not. I wouldn't say that's like a reasonable poll. That race tends to be a lot closer than that, so I usually filter them out. So if you wonder why I filter a bunch of these out, some new disapproval poll again, like this thing. This is actually so this is like a bad poll, but sometimes when you, this A means that they polled adults, not voters or likely voters or registered voters. So it's been pretty consistent that adults as a whole tend to disapprove more of Trump, but a lot of them don't vote. So, what are you going to do? Those are your people who are not very engaged in politics and are like, I don't like the way the guy tweets all the time. It's a pretty soft metric. So, do not read into this at all. These are fine. Approval, disapproval matters, or polls don't really matter this late in the race. People tend to kind of converge. It's like you're not going to say, oh, I'm voting for Trump, but I also disapprove of him. I mean, some people do, but usually not. So you'll actually see his presidential approval tighten just a little bit as we get down to the nitty gritty of it. As of right now, the new batch of polls and everything actually has been steering more towards Biden. So this is now Biden at an 89 out of 100. You can see how this has changed over time. You can see it's just been widening. And I want to talk about what has happened here, because a lot of people assume kind of some incorrect things about why this race is widening. So you have to listen to Nate Silver and figure out like the model and how it acts. So basically the model assumed that this race was going to tighten down the stretch. Like this popular vote percentage was actually going to get closer. As you can see, it's actually like fallen just a little bit, but it's been relatively stable. As we get closer and closer to the election, if nothing changes, this will likely be closer, I'm guessing, to 92 to 95%. That's if everything stays status quo, everything's fine, even, no big deal. So that's why when this increases, sometimes it's not, oh, we got good polls today. It's like actually just he didn't get bad polls. That's all it takes for Biden really to win here. As of writing this, I think there's been like 70 million votes, maybe more than that. The turnout is going to be huge. If we look up the turnout, I realize like when I open new tabs, you can probably see a bunch of other things. So if you look at voter turnout somewhere in here, there you go. So this one, turnout, is going to be key. So 2016 and, sorry, one more time. I kind of incorrectly rearranged that. So you can see historically we've been like 122 is a really big deal when we kind of upped that. And we've been treading along at kind of the same 55%-ish. This year, low-end estimates are like the high 140s. It can go all the way up to like high 160s, which is going to be a pretty huge shift. That's a lot more people. I don't think anybody should believe that like straight up more people voting means Democrats will do better across the board. It can be a piece of the puzzle, but not the whole thing. Don't assume like 20 million more voters equals like 15 million more voters for Democrats. It's not always that correlated. It also depends on the states. So we'll see what this number ends up being. It's probably going to be a lot. I'll be honest with you. We also have some cool news. I got to actually I can pull up her Facebook page. I'm going to do that. I got to talk to Sarah Trone Garriott yesterday for a little pre-interview. I'm going to be interviewing her on election night. Let's pull up her page here. This is Sarah. She's way cool. Really, really neat person. Got to interview her, talk to her for like a half hour. She's gracious enough to come on election night, like when polls close. She actually requested a slightly later time because she'll be phone banking up until the polls close. So I think polls close at 7:30. We're going to talk at 8 o'clock. So she will just be in that liminal space between figuring out when the results come in. She is fighting for a currently Republican-held seat. Joe, knowing where you live, you are, I'm almost sure, in her district as well. I think you're just on the other side, Dallas County. I don't want to dox you on exactly where you live, but I think that's general enough. So I think she's in your as well. So if you vote, she would be one that you will vote for if you're voting democratically. Gonna have her on, talk about some issues, talk about a few things. Great conversation. It should be a really good time, and I expect her to be probably distracted and super nervous. And actually, since we've got a little bit of time, I'm gonna get into it a little bit. I've been doing my own projections for how her race is going to go. I didn't tell her this at all, but essentially I went back. This is an idea of like what I do with my spare time. Are you ready? So this is her race that she's going for in 2016. Charles Schneider, who is retiring, he is not going to be the incumbent, so it is an open seat. Trying to figure out the number of votes. So I actually went back and split these out. There's a difference between Polk County and Dallas County. Polk County went like 10 points for Clinton. Dallas County went like 10 points for Trump in the last election. So what that means is Polk County is typically going to get their results in pretty quick. Dallas usually takes a little bit longer. So I'm using that to try to project the race. So given that Polk County's results will come in, we're going to use that figuring those will probably be more favorable towards Sarah. If they're not, she's going to be in very deep trouble. If that comes back even, that's going to be a real tough win for her. So she should expect that those come back a little bit positive in her direction, and then we can kind of apply and figure out how that shakes out. Again, I have like kind of the full numbers and how it compares to these votes. Polk County is a smaller percentage, so Dallas County is actually bigger, so she's going to have to win either if it's like 10 points for Clinton/Democrats or 10 points for Sarah in Polk County versus Dallas County. It's going to get a little bit hairy, but I'm going to basically run my own projections and see if we get Polk County results really, really quickly, which sometimes we can, or at least we start getting some preliminary results, kind of saying if those results hold, once we get a reasonable percentage, see if we can't call the race or figure out, call the race is probably too aggressive, but figure out if she's in a good spot or not. And we're going to figure out, if she's able to pull it off. It's certainly an uphill battle, but both districts that she ran for, or both as a sub-district, she's running for the Senate, the House seats, both went for Democrats by relatively decisive margins. So she does have a really great shot. It's definitely a winnable race. She's a great candidate. Talking to her, you guys will get to meet her, and she's excellent. Her energy is very infectious, and you can see, why she's running. One of those people that strikes you right away. You're like, okay, yeah, I get why you're doing this. So we'll have to wait and see and figure out whether or not she wins. She won't be able to comment on anything at all until like 10 o'clock. So we will get no answers from her, and I'll make sure to set that up. So anything will be my projection, and I likely will not. I don't know if I'll tell her anything The worst thing I would want to do is like give her false hope because my projections are wrong. So we're gonna wait and play that pretty cool. Any insight into the election day voter suppression tactic in context with historical mail-in ballots? We have to kind of wait and see. Election day, it's going to be difficult, but every year there are all kinds of crazy stories. Again, I've talked about this, I think, a couple times, but if you have a 1 in a million event, that's going to happen 150 times. Like, if you think of, like, the most egregious thing, like, that's going to happen. So you have to really figure out that these are isolated incidents in most cases. Most election officials are very, very strong. They want a fair race regardless of what their own political leanings are. They usually take their job very seriously. So I don't think that there's going to be anything widespread. I'm 100% certain we will hear stories from both sides. I hate to put this out into the world, but I would almost expect that there may be violence at the polls at some areas. Trump hasn't done a lot to quell that. There are some states kind of wondering, hiring security. Some states have open carry, so voter suppression can be as simple as somebody doing something totally legal, like standing outside with of a polling place with a Trump sign and an open carry gun. I hope those things don't happen. They shouldn't happen on either side. So there's that. Oh, with counting votes after Election Day, it's been a little interesting. Some states are allowing it, some are striking it down. Most places that I've seen have had like massive campaigns to, like, even in Iowa, I have seen people posting now, it is too late for a mail-in ballot, which I don't think is technically the case, but might be the case. So I think people are very, very stingy about when exactly they're going to mail things in, and I think there's been a pretty big push not to trust the post office with your ballot. I know personally we handed ours in. We didn't want them going through the mail. Not that I think there's anything that widespread, but, let's just eliminate any possible complications. So there's a ton of people doing that. They had a lot of votes dropped off. There was lines at the polling place. So I don't know if anyone has any idea how many of those will come in after, but we are on pace for absolute smashing record turnout. I'm hopeful that even if there is voter suppression that way, that it's not going to be enough to overcome the wave that's coming. Some things are projecting Biden winning by 10 percentage points. That's a lot. That would be really, really difficult to have like 1 in 10 ballots invalidated or something. So without a doubt, I'm sure we're going to hear stories on both sides. I tend to be very, very skeptical. Even voter suppression-esque stories about, they're throwing out ballots here at a higher rate or something. All those things need to be looked into, of course, but I'm usually pretty skeptical about a lot of that. So hopefully that answers. I hope I'm hitting on the right piece there. Mail-in and ballots and when things are accepted and not accepted have been particularly crazy. There's also a very good, to plug this live update thread on 538.com. If you look at this, they're actually following all kinds of issues, legal battle brewing in Minnesota. This whole thing has been running for days, and every time there's updates, this is a ton of information, but every individual major story kind of usually percolates into that. And lastly, this is another great interactive. This is when to expect results, basically on election night, and you can see Florida. Like, this is why Florida is so very key. This is free form. This is jazz, Joe. There's no derailing here. It's wherever my brain goes. I think you'll learn very quickly that there is no such case, no possible way you could derail more than what we're already going to do. So how much of the vote is expected on election night, like Florida? Even North Carolina, I think, is technically a lighter blue, most but not all. If these things, it's like if you get 90% of the vote in, and you can kind of using math figure out if there's any possible way to come back from the deficit that either party might find themselves in. They have some really, really good math. I think ABC News today said that they will not be calling a race until they are at least 99.5% sure that it will go in that direction. So, and again, with that, there's nearly 1,000 races. So that's enough that they probably, 1,000 races is probably a little heavy. There might be national races. There might be something in that range. So they're probably going to get like one wrong. It's just, math, statistics, that whole thing. So we'll see. But again, if I have my tier list still pulled up here. Arizona, Florida, North Carolina. Here are your whole keys on what we're going to watch, and we'll figure it out on election day. So with that, I think I'm gonna sign off. We're getting down to it. 30th, 31st, 1st, 2nd, and then 3rd. We're so close to election day, and I can't wait. It'll be a fun night, and I hope to see you all there. So thanks a bunch, and I will see you guys later.